All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the very last video analyzing the 2022 VCE economics exam. We're going to be looking at section B, question 4, where we're getting into the supply and demand, market failure, and government intervention that led to an unintentional decrease in the efficiency in resource allocation. This won't take us too long. It's one of the simpler questions on the exam. We'll look at basically where the market should have come from and what you could have potentially written as answers. A good thing with a lot within this exam, there's a lot of scope to do a few different options as long as you justify it well. So as always, disclaimer, this is just my opinions, might not actually be accurate. We'll find out when VCAR releases their marking guide. So 4A, I've got this information here. Once again, when you've got information like this, you should always include it in your answer. So all of this information up here, you should include some of it in your answer because it is important to the context of the whole question 4. So we've got the World Health Organization recommends that free sugars should account for less than 10% of total energy intake. So blah, 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 for the prevention of unhealthy weight gain and dental caries. Over half of consumers in Australia, so 52%, and New Zealand adults, 58%, are exceeding the WHO recommended intakes, with adolescents and young children recording the highest sugar consumption. So hopefully when you've read that, you're already just like all the negative externalities of sugar consumption and the bad things that are associated with that. So then we've got some extra context here. So free sugars are sugars added to drinks, as well as sugars in honey, fruit juice, and fruit juice concentrate. So it's basically extra sugar added. And dental caries means tooth decay. It's very nice of VCAR to include that in there. So we've got outline a potential opportunity cost of consuming sugar for an individual. So an unintended, or like basically the next best alternative that could exist because of consuming sugar. So if someone is consuming sugar, what can they not consume because of that? So an opportunity cost is, you're going to describe opportunity cost first up. So describe opportunity cost. So it's the next best alternative forsaken or given up when choosing the next best alternative. So it's a production foregone when choosing the next best alternative. And so in this case, the production foregone is consuming anything else. So the example here, your second mark is going to be from your example, and it could be you could consume a healthy piece of fruit, like a banana. That's what you can't consume because you're consuming that sugar. And that's going to be really important there. It's what you're giving up for consuming that sugar. You cannot consume something else that is potentially going to be good for you. So then, with reference to the information provided on page 20, explain one reason why excess consumption of sugar may cause market failure. So it's going to be really important here is talking about what market failure is. So it's any allocation of resources that doesn't maximize living standards. So describing that. And then talking about what market failure is being caused by the excess consumption of sugar, which I'd argue is negative externalities. You could potentially argue asymmetric information, but there is information laws that prevent that from being the case now. But negative externalities is the easiest one to describe, because what you're going to be hopefully talking about there, so your negative impact on a third party due to production, you're going to be talking about the negative health impacts of consuming sugar. And then whoever the third party that impacts is. So with that, it could be that people are less productive in their workplaces, etc. So businesses may suffer because of it, because people might have more sick days. They might not be, if they are becoming obese, they're not going to be able to work as well while they are at work. So businesses may suffer or be less productive. And that is going to be the combination that you kind of take there. As long as you can link that negative externalities to who it's going to negatively impact, you could also talk about the fact that it's going to cause excess strain on the healthcare system. And that would be the negative impact overall, because as all of these people now need more medical care, it takes away those beds from someone else and therefore makes resource allocation a little bit worse because it extends waiting times, etc. So as long as you mention all those points and really specifically get to the third party that's impacted, you're going to be sweet. So then, using a fully labeled supply and demand diagram, illustrate and analyze how one form of government intervention might lead to a change in relative prices and the allocation of resources. You may refer to any market in your response. So you could go with the sugar market, you could go with anything else. So what's really important is that you're going to have price and quantity. on your diagram and then mark it for and whatever it is. So I'm going to mark it for healthy food. And in this case, seeing as we're going sugar, I'm just going to lettuce because it's been in the zeitgeist this year. So we're going to have our demand and supply lines, so we'll draw them in. We've got our demand line there, we've got our supply line here, and then we need to talk about whatever government intervention is going to hopefully improve upon this and correct this market failure. So if we talked about healthy food production, we could talk about subsidies for farmers and therefore go to S1 there and would move from PE1 and QE1 to eventually getting to PE2 and QE2. That's hopefully all you're going to need in your diagram overall. Then you have to talk about how it might lead to a change in relative prices and the allocation of resources. So in this case, what's going to end up happening here is that the relative price is that we're going to talk about how that supply shift happens. So if we talk about subsidies, which are a payment to producers for producing a specific good or service, that is going to lead to favorable supply conditions for the market for lettuce and lead to an increase in supply at any given price. This creates a surplus or oversupply of lettuce, and then businesses start to decrease prices to clear excess stock until you reach a new equilibrium. This decreases the relative price of lettuce for consumers compared to food with sugar in it or with added sugars. Therefore, consumers are likely to reallocate their resources towards purchasing lettuces as it's going to maximize their utility. And if you mention those points, you are going to be very good overall. So you're going to describe the shift, talk about surplus and new equilibrium. Then you're going to get from there to change in relative price. And then from there, how that changes consumers' resource allocation. So change in resource allocation. There's countless examples you could have used for this question at the same time, because you could have used any market. And so because of that, there's so many different ways. As long as you mentioned how it changes, you could talk about things that increase demand. You could have talked about subsidies for solar panels for consumers. You could talk about so many different things, but the most important thing is that you're getting to that, how that changes resource allocation, and then how it changes relative prices. And then for our very last question, a question that we all expected would be on this exam, so hopefully you were 100% prepared for it. Explain how government intervention may have unintentionally led to a decrease in the efficiency in resource allocation and refer to any market in your response. So because of that, we don't have to refer to the market for sugar as was coming up in previous questions. We can refer to any market that we want. The example I've been using all year is JobKeeper or the minimum wage, and therefore it's about businesses or the labor market. So you describe what those things are and what they are trying to correct. So with JobKeeper, it was a wage subsidy designed to help businesses that were struggling during COVID. And with the minimum wage, it's trying to basically help society or trying to maximize well-being by having people having a living wage. And so trying to maximize living standards. The issue with both of these is that the minimum wage, because it's so high compared to overseas countries, it means that businesses can't achieve technical efficiency or productive efficiency because they can't produce at the lowest cost for the highest output because our wages are so high, which increases cost of production, especially with the increase in the minimum wage by 5.2 or 5.3% this year. And therefore, it means that technical efficiency cannot be achieved. With JobKeeper, as that wage subsidy, businesses that were profitable still received it. That were profitable. E.g., Harvey Norman received $23 million that they shouldn't have received. And that means that allocated efficiency cannot be achieved because that money could have been allocated to better areas that would have maximized living standards. As long as you talked about the intervention, what it did, what it was meant to do, and what efficiency wasn't achieved, you should be totally all right there. You could have also talked about the NBN. There's many different things you could talk about that are going to be correct for those answers. So congratulations, you're completely finished with this exam forever, unless you hang around or you get your script from VCAR, or you look at the marking guide next year when it comes out. But thank you for hanging out, coming back, watching these videos, asking questions about them. If you have any questions at all, leave a comment below or email me, Sean@therunningeconomy.com. Thank you for all of your support throughout the year and potentially 2 years. I hope that you have done well in economics. And other than that, I'll see you next time, or see you never. Goodbye.